come upon us. Go ahead.
Consider and behold our reproach.
Consider and behold our reproach. Why? Because of the way we're dealt with.
Right.
Look at Donald Trump.
Right.
And many before him about that. All these politicians, they call us what? Illegal aliens. They try to push us out.
Bring it out.
When this was our land.
Right.
But what does the Bible say about them? Read.
Verse 2. Our inheritance is turned to strangers.
Our inheritance is turned to strangers.
That's right.
This was our inheritance.
Right.
This was our land. And
Right.
they pushed us out of it.
Right.
Bring
You
it
had
out.
you had Issachar, the so-called Mexicans.
Right.
You had Gad, the so-called native.
Right.
All right, and Reuben. This was all their land. If you know any little piece of history, you know how it was taken.
That's
all right?
right.
It says our inheritance is turned to strangers.
Bring it
They
out.
were strangers to us. They spoke a language that we could not understand.
Right. Our houses to aliens.
Our houses to aliens. God calls those strangers that took our inheritance aliens. They call us the illegal aliens.
Good.
But God says they are the aliens.
That's
Let's
right.
read it again from the top.
Lamentations chapter 5 verse 2.
Bring it out.
Our inheritance is turned to strangers.
It says our inheritance is turned to strangers. The nations that live here today and took this land from us are strangers. Read.
Our houses to aliens.
Our houses have been turned to aliens.
Bring it
And
out.
they kicked us out.
Right.
They came over here and they shut it down.
Right.
All right, go ahead.
We are orphans and fatherless. Our mothers are as widows.
What is that talking about? It says we are orphans and fatherless. Our mothers are as good as we can find this one out there. All right? All our history is in the Bible.
That's
So
right.
we just have to link it up so that
Right.
we can come to a remembrance of who we are. All right? All these different names, Mexicans, Indians, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, right? This is names that they subscribe to. Puerto Rico means a rich port. So if I'm a Puerto Rican, that means I'm a thing. It doesn't make any sense. All right? Prior to them getting here, all right, we forgot that we were the Israelites, okay? But we were called Arawaks or Tainos. And Tainos is not what we called ourselves, but that was part of the vernacular. That was the language that we spoke.
Right.
Taino is loosely a Hebrew word. Okay?
Bring it out.
When Columbus came here, he came with Hebrew translators, all
Right.
right? He came with Hebrew. If you read any histories on the journals and the voyages of Columbus, he came here. What was it? 8 Hebrew translators. All right. You got some. You got the verse in there that talks about our brother Joseph lives on the island.
Yes.
All right. You know what page that's in? All right. So read this.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people.
This happened. What? You see these images here? That's when that happened. Our sons and our daughters were given unto another people. The conquistadors, just by their name. What is a conquistar? What does it mean? To conquer.
Right.
Their name was conquerors.
Right.
So they didn't come here with peace and love. They came to make us bow down to these false images. Because they didn't look like us. This is a false image. I grew up with this image in my house, in Abuela's house. All right, believing that that was Jesus.
Right.
And that's important because it's a lie. All right, this is a lie.
Right.
And it's high time that we learn the truth. All
That's
right?
right.
They don't teach this history in our schools.
Bring it
All
out.
right? We were in slavery. We forget that. When we think slavery, what do we think of? We think of our brothers, right? The so-called African Americans, Judah, Benjamin, Levi.
Right.
All right?
Right.
But we were in slavery as well.
That's right.
All right? Go ahead, read.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people,
Why were they given unto another people in slavery, in captivity? Go ahead.
and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long.
Our eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. Why? Because we had no might in our hand.
Right.
They came, they made us sick. Blankets, they brought diseases over that we had no
Right.
resistance
Bring
to.
it out.
All right? They robbed, they spoiled, they came with their weapons of war.
And overtake thee.
All right? He's talking about, Moses is talking to the Israelites in the wilderness. Get in your mind that the Israelites are not what the world has told you the Israelites are. It's when I say Jew, what do you think of? Describe a Jewish man to me.
A Jew is a religion.
Okay, but if I say I saw a Jewish man run up to this man over here and punch him in the face, I'm a cop. Give me a description of the Jewish man. What does he look like? What was he wearing?
They're usually very light skinned.
Uh-huh. What else?
And they usually have the hair on the side.
The hair on the side and all that,
Yarmulke,
right?
right.
We gotta get that out of our head, all right? The Jews look like us, okay?
That's
We're
right.
the
Right.
Jews, all right?
That's right.
You have to get that out of your head.
Bring
It's
it out.
Listen, the people who have won the histories, the people who have won the wars, they're the ones that write the history.
Right.
All right. So they've told us, because when we were, first of all, for us, I'll deal with Northern Kingdom, right? We didn't understand Spanish. As much as we speak Spanish now as our primary language, ish means to be like something, right? So if I say right now, oh, it's 8-ish, what time is it? Is it 8? Or is it maybe 8:10? Is it 8:15? It's around 8, right? So when you say Spanish, if you look up ish, it'll give you, it tells you it means to have characteristics like. So when you say Spanish, it means like the Spaniards, okay? Spanish is not our natural tongue.
Bring it out.
We lost all that when they came and conquered us and put us in slavery and destroyed us as a people, all right? And they changed the image. They changed our understanding of who we were, all right, and our history.
Right.
Think about it. With very few exceptions, right? Because there's a little bit of history about the so-called Mexicans, right? With the Mayans, okay? The Incas, when you deal with going further down, okay? But prior to that, why does our history start with slavery? Think about it. When you look historically, right? Our history starts with slavery because they tell you we were here much longer. The Bible tells you that. Bear with me. I want to get to this, and then I want to get to you and how we really got to this side of the world, all right? Because that's where our history begins. That connects the dots that you know all the so-called Hispanics that they call us that are on this side of the world are really the children of Israel. Continue reading what you got there.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 45.
Go ahead.
Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed.
So we be destroyed as a people. These curses were a sign for us so that we can understand and remember in these last days who we are. Go ahead.
Right. Because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God.
Because we didn't obey God's commandments. If you read historically in the scriptures, the Israelites were always rebellious. The law was given down and we broke it. Go ahead.
To keep his commandments.
Go ahead.
And his statutes,
Go ahead.
which he commanded thee.
Go ahead, continue.
And they shall be upon thee.
And he says, and they, these curses that we're talking about, he says, they shall be upon you, Israel. Go ahead.
For a sign and for a wonder.
What's a sign? If I want to know what street this is right here, I got to look over there to tell me what it is, right? It's a sign. That's why I say these curses are for us to bring ourselves back to remembrance. They said for a sign and a wonder. Why? Because it's astonishment. It's a wonder what's happened to our people. Go ahead, read.
And upon thy seed forever.
And upon our seed forever, which is why we're still in the conditions that we are today. We have the illusion of inclusion going on in this country.
That's
because
right.
in this day and age, to have a politician like Donald Trump, and he speaks for his whole party in those things, all right? He speaks for the ruling elect of this world, okay? For him to speak the way he does about us as a people, and he speaks specifically about Mexicans, we're talking about all Hispanics, and y'all experience it here. See, I'm from New York. So there's somewhat a little more unity amongst us out there, all right? So there's a little more unity among us out there, but here there isn't, okay? You have a lot of tensions here between the races out here, especially with the Spanish races, right? Go ahead, continue, read.
Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart.
With joyfulness and gladness of heart, go ahead.
For the abundance of all things.
For the abundance of all things, because the whole earth was created for us, if we kept his commandments. I'll get to you in a second, brother, go ahead.
Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee.
So he said, because we broke the laws, statutes, and commandments, therefore we shall serve our enemies that the Lord shall send against us. God sent these conquistadors against us.
That's
because
right.
it's part of the curses. Go ahead, continue.
In hunger.
In hunger.
And in thirst.
And in thirst.
And in nakedness.
Okay, in want of all things. Go ahead.
And in want of all things.
And in want of all things. That means anything that you want today in this world, we have to go to what? The ruling elect. We don't control and run the industries out here.
Right.
All right. This government here is in charge of everything.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck.
And he says this race of people shall put a yoke of iron upon our neck. Go ahead.
Until he have destroyed thee.
That's what we see here. You see it here. We think of yokes of iron, right? And what did I say? We think about the African, so-called African slave trade. It happened to our people too. Yes, so-called, because African is a name that was subscribed to us, all right?
Right.
We didn't pick those titles for ourselves.
That's right.
All right? I didn't choose to be called a Puerto Rican.
Right.
You didn't choose to be called a Mexican. All right, go ahead, read.
The Lord shall bring a nation against.
So now he's telling you, it's a nation that the Lord is going to send against you, all right? The nation of Spain. All right, go ahead.
The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far.
From far. Where? From where? Go ahead.
From the end of the earth.
From the end of the earth. Why? Because you have the Western Hemisphere and the Eastern Hemisphere. They came from the other side of the world over here. Read.
Right. As swift as the eagle flieth.
Do we have the one with the symbol of the eagle? Y'all got that sign? With the different currencies? All right. Okay. It says, as swift as the eagle flieth. When you look historically on the flyer, it tells you every ruling nation that the Bible, for the most part, has spoke about has used the eagle in some form as their symbol. All right? Who uses the eagle as their symbol today?
The Mexicans.
Right? No, as the rulers, America. Right? So Greek had it, Rome had it, Spain had it. All right? And we have it in the flyer. When you open it up, it talks about it in there. Read.
A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand.
And you know what? Hold on a second. You got to understand something. God is very particular in the words that he uses in the Bible. Is the eagle the fastest bird from what we understand from animals today? No. He said as swift as the eagle flies. He didn't just pick a random bird. There's a reason for this. Remember what we read earlier. These things are a sign and a wonder so that we can come to remembrance today of who we really are.
That's
all right? The eagle's not the fastest. He used the eagle because the eagle symbolizes these ruling powers.
Right.
As swift as the eagle flieth. Go ahead.
A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand.
We didn't understand Spanish, and they came here with their treaties and read them to us in Spanish,
right,
expecting us to understand, and when we didn't comply,
right,
they justified their actions and took our land and took our children.
Right.
All right, go ahead, read. Is that it on that verse?
Yes, sir.
All right, drop that. Give me 2 Esdras 13 and 40.
Bring it
I
out.
want to give you this, all right? Before you go, it looks like you got to go, but before you go, you got to get this part because you've never heard this before, all right? And this needs to resonate with you. What does history tell you how this side of the world got populated? You know, if you don't know, do you know how they say the world, this side of the world got populated? They say we walked over the Bering Strait.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
We came, so they say that we're basically Asian.
Yeah.
Everybody from this side is Asian. That's what they say. This is what the Bible says. Go
the
ahead.
book of 2 Esdras, chapter 13, verse 40. Bring it out. Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners.
Right. He's breaking down a parable that was there, all right? And he says, what you saw, those were the 10 tribes which were taken away prisoner, go ahead.
Out of their own land.
Out of our own land of Samaria, it was called back then, go ahead.
In the time of Osi the king, whom Salmaneser, the king of Assyria, led away captive.
Because the ancient Assyrians, one of their customs was, when they conquered a land, they took the people that were there out of there and put their people there. Because you break the customs and the heritage. You make them forget and you assimilate them into your society. So this is where the races started changing, all right? God only made 18 nations. If you want to get technical and you want to go back, God named 18 nations.
That's right.
That's what he made. That's what God, if the creator says that's what we are, that's what we are.
Right.
Today we went all over the place and started subscribing ourselves to different things. And in captivities, in the different captivities, we were told, no, you're this, no, you're that, no, you're this. All right, go ahead, read.
And he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land.
Go ahead.
But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen.
All right, so under the Persian king, they were given liberty. You read in the history, God put the spirit on the Persian king to say, hey, let the Israelites go. And he gave them liberty. And he said, you know what? Go back. If you want to go to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple, rebuild the temple. He goes, if you want to stay here with us, you can stay here with us. But go. But the leaders of those 10 tribes, at that time it was 10, but it's 9 now because the prophecy was Dan would not exist as a tribe. But if you get down here, it's talking about the so-called Hispanic and Native American tribes, all right? He says their elders got together and they took a council among themselves. And they said, we've got our freedom. What are we going to do? Read.
That they would leave the multitude of the heathen.
Heathen means other nations. And they said, you know what? We need to leave the multitude of these nations where we're at. And the known world at that time is what? Over there in Europe, the Middle East, right? So they said, we need to go away from here. Go ahead.
And go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt.
Listen to the words carefully. They said they were going to go to a further country where never mankind dwelt. To a side of the world where never mankind dwelt. We don't have the map. Y'all don't have the sign with the map of that region? All right. He says, that's at that time in history, all right, that side of the world was fully discovered. All those countries were named, right? What's your name, brother? Johan? All right, Johan. So at that time, that side of the world was discovered. So-called America was not this side of the world. So they said, we're going to go someplace where never mankind dwelt. Go Go ahead.
that they might there keep their statutes.
This is why they said they were going to leave the multitude of the heathen. That we might go someplace where there's no other nations, so that we can there keep our statutes. Go ahead.
Which they never kept in their own land.
So that we can keep the laws. Like we read in Deuteronomy 28. We went into captivity because we didn't keep the laws. They said, let's go someplace where we don't have the negative influence of these other nations, so that we don't go ahead and try to follow after them, and we can keep our laws. Go ahead.
And they entered into Euphrates
And they entered into the Euphrates River. Go ahead.
by the narrow passages of the river.
By the narrow passages of the river. Go ahead.
For the Most High then showed signs.
The Most High God showed them signs, because the tribe of Issachar was given unto them to be great navigators. Right? They were the tribe that helped us navigate through the Spirit of the Most High to get to this side of the world. I had the visual I could show you. Go ahead.
Then showed signs for them, and held still the flood till they were passed
The
over.
flood is the ocean. So he showed the signs and the stars to Issachar, the so-called Mexicans, to guide the ships of all our people. And he held still. He made the ocean calm. Go ahead.
For through that country there was a great way to go.
Because it was a long journey. This goes to show you, because some history will try to tell you that they sailed around and they stayed in that region. That's not the case. Go ahead.
Namely, of a year and a half.
That journey took a year and a half. To get from one side of the world to the other back then probably would have took about a year and a half. Go ahead.
And the same region is called Arsaret.
And that same region is called Arsaret. All right. And there's an excerpt from the JewishEncyclopedia.com. You got it?
Yes.
Read it.
The 1906 Jewish Encyclopedia definition of Arsaret, the name of the land beyond the great river,
The
far away,
Euphrates River, like we read in the scriptures. Go ahead.
far away from the habitation of man,
A man with further country where never mankind dwelt. Go ahead.
in which the 10 tribes of Israel will dwell,
They said they will dwell, meaning they will still be here today. Go ahead.
observing the law of Moses until the time of restoration.
As now that we're coming back, we're observing the laws, statutes, and commandments of God until Christ returns and restores this earth to us. That's what we're waiting for over here. Continue.
According to 2nd Esdras, chapter 13, verse 45.
That's where we're reading from right now in the Bible. This is from so-called Jewish scholars. They're writing to you historically and validating this information. All right, go ahead.
Columbus
Columbus. Go